The Stellar Accord Central Citadel was a monument to established authority, a gleaming spear of polished chromesteel piercing the cerulean sky of Xylo's prime. Its summit was often wreathed in the planet's wispy high-altitude clouds. Below, the sprawling megalopolis of Eldoria bustled, unaware of the silent, precise orchestration of galactic order happening high above. Inside the citadel, the air hummed with the steady thrum of advanced energy conduits, a constant, subtle vibration beneath one's feet. It was reassuring and omnipresent, a heartbeat of sterile power. Every surface gleamed, reflecting the cool, crisp light of the holographic displays that shimmered throughout its vast, hushed corridors. It smelled faintly of ozone and recycled air, a scent of sterile efficiency, yet beneath it, Anya Sharma detected the faint, almost imperceptible tang of stagnation. Anya Sharma, human, and for too long barely acknowledged architect of the Accord's most critical infrastructure, found the place suffocating. It was a gilded cage of self-importance, a mausoleum to systems she knew, intimately, were slowly failing. She stood before Director Cathar and the assembled council, her slim frame radiating a quiet intensity that contrasted sharply with the relaxed, dismissive posture of the alien dignitaries. Her holographic projection flickered above the polished obsidian table, depicting an intricate web of data streams, potential failure points highlighted in angry crimson. It was a cancerous sprawl of vulnerability that only she seemed able to perceive. Her gaze was not one of defiance, but of weary, patient certainty. Years of being overlooked had taught her to distill her arguments into irrefutable logic, even when her audience was determinedly illogical. Director Cathar, Anya began, her voice calm, devoid of the emotion that clawed at her insides. It was a controlled instrument honed by countless ignored warnings. My analysis indicates a critical cascade vulnerability within the Accord's primary defense networks and logistical backbone. The Phoenix Protocol, my own contingency, if you recall, is the only viable failsafe, but it requires direct, uncompromised integration now. The window for preemptive action is closing rapidly. Cathar, a reptilian Catharian with scales the color of polished jade, steepled his clawed fingers. A condescending smirk played on his thin lips. His eyes, like polished emeralds, regarded Anya with a mixture of polite disinterest and ingrained xenophobia. He occupied the central seat, his imposing presence dominating the room, a physical manifestation of the Accord's entrenched power. Architect Sharma, he purred, the sound a low rasp that seemed to brush against her very nerves, your enthusiasm is noted. We appreciate your continued diligence. But to suggest that the Accord's meticulously constructed systems, maintained by our finest engineers for centuries, are on the precipice of critical cascade failure is, frankly, sensationalist. He leaned back, a picture of smug confidence. The Phoenix Protocol was a theoretical exercise, a mere contingency plan for an improbable worst-case scenario. It was never intended for widespread deployment, least of all for a wholesale replacement of our robust existing infrastructure. His gaze swept over the council, silently soliciting their agreement. A few nods rippled through the gathered faces beings of various species, most significantly older than Anya, their traditions and bureaucratic inertia deeply entrenched, their belief in the Accord's invincibility absolute. They saw a young human woman, not a visionary. Anya's jaw tightened, a barely perceptible clenching of muscle. She had designed the entire system, had built it from the ground up, and knew its every elegant strength and every hidden weakness. Her genius had given the Accord its operational backbone, its very nervous system. To Cathar, she was merely a human civilian tech, a temporary curiosity whose usefulness had peaked with the initial build. Her warnings for years had been consistently met with bureaucratic resistance, then polite dismissal, and now outright contempt. Blind, arrogant fools. The phrase resonated in her mind, a cold, hard truth. She closed her eyes for a fleeting second, picturing the complex latticework of her original designs, the elegant pathways that were now choked with patchworks and redundancies, layered by less discerning, less understanding hands. They had built a beautiful machine, then tried to improve it with incompatible parts, turning a symphony into a cacophony. The seeds of her unconventional solution had been planted years ago, nurtured by their short-sightedness, their intellectual laziness. Now they were ready to bloom. She opened her eyes, her gaze steely, a quiet storm brewing behind her composed exterior. The Accord systems were designed for optimal efficiency, Director. What you call maintenance and redundancy are, in fact, layer upon layer of incompatible legacy code and unauthorized modifications, creating unexpected dependencies and critical choke points. It's no longer a robust network. It's a house of cards, intricately built on a foundation that has been undermined by its supposed caretakers. The Phoenix Protocol is not theoretical. It's a complete system overhaul, designed to run in parallel and take over seamlessly. It's the only way to prevent total collapse. She emphasized total collapse, letting the words hang in the air, a chilling prophecy. Cathar merely waved a dismissive hand, his jade scales rippling in irritation, his eyes flicking to the chrono on the wall. He had important, less troublesome matters to attend to. The Accord stability has been paramount for centuries, architect. Your dire predictions have no basis in our current operational logs. We trust our protocols, we trust our engineers, and we trust the foundational resilience you yourself initially ensured. Rest assured, architect, the Accord is well within established parameters. Your concerns, while diligently presented, are unwarranted. Meeting adjourned. The council members began to stir, their polite murmurs a clear signal of their agreement with Cathar, their relief palpable that this unpleasant, fear-mongering presentation was over. Anya watched them, her quiet fury hardening into cold, pragmatic determination. Their dismissal was not just an insult to her, but a betrayal of every citizen the Accord was sworn to protect. They would learn, they would all learn, and she would be the one to teach them, even if it meant tearing down the edifice they so carelessly revered. Months later, the quiet hum of Anya's hidden lab felt like a sanctuary, a world away from the sterile arrogance of the Citadel. Here, the air crackled with the vibrant energy of active circuitry, carrying the faint, reassuring scent of ozone and warm synthetics. Data streamed in luminous cascades across holographic interfaces, bathing the custom-built consoles in shifting light. This wasn't merely a lab. It was an extension of her own mind, a meticulously designed ecosystem where logic reigned supreme and chaos was an enemy to be understood and contained. Anya, curled in her worn pilot's chair, a mug of lukewarm synth coffee beside her, observed the unfolding chaos with grim satisfaction. The red blips on her vast, interactive star map were multiplying, each one a testament to the Accord's folly. A localized power grid on the remote agricultural colony of Veridian-7 had failed. A minor incident, the Accord's official reports claimed, a subsector energy fluctuation. Cathar's PR machine was already spinning, downplaying the crisis. Anya, however, saw the subtle, underlying signature, a telltale ripple in the broader energy matrix that indicated something far more insidious than a simple component failure. It was the first crack, exactly as she had predicted, a tiny fissure in a dam that was slowly, inevitably, giving way. Her internal comms chirped, a familiar, welcome sound. "Anya, are you seeing this blip around Veridian-7? Dr. Alara Vess's voice, calm and intellectual, came through the speaker. Alara, a xenobotanist and environmental ethicist, was one of the few voices on the Accord Council who actually listened, whose scientific integrity superseded political expediency. "My ecological sensors are picking up a sudden drop in atmospheric processor output, far more severe than the Accord is reporting. My data suggests localized biome destabilization, approaching irreversible levels if not addressed within the next solar cycle." Anya tapped a holographic display, pulling up Alara's readings, overlaying them with her own energy diagnostics. The intricate, glowing network of information seemed to pulse with an almost biological urgency. "I'm seeing it, Alara, and it's not localized. It's a systemic bleed. The energy grid failure isn't the cause, it's a symptom. The Accord's diagnostic protocols are cycling, chasing phantoms instead of addressing the root cause." A flicker of genuine concern crossed Anya's face, quickly masked by her customary composure. She valued life, even if her path to preserving it was coldly pragmatic. "They're patching over the symptom, not curing the disease. The atmospheric processors on Veridian-7 are running on a degraded power matrix, relying on inefficient fallback protocols that were never designed for prolonged stress. The longer it runs like that, the worse the collateral damage to your ecosystems will be, potentially leading to mass species die-offs." "But why aren't they seeing the larger issue?" Alara asked, a note of worry in her voice, tinged with disbelief. "The Accord prides itself on its robust diagnostic capabilities. They have entire departments dedicated to system integrity." "Because they don't want to see it, Alara," Anya replied, her tone dry, edged with a bitterness born of long-held frustration. Their systems are too complex, too interwoven with custom improvements they don't understand. They've built a black box, and now they're inside it blind. Their protocols are optimized to confirm existing stability, not to detect foundational collapse. Admitting a systemic flaw means admitting their own incompetence, their hubris, and Cathar would rather watch a planet die than admit he was wrong. Anya knew Alara was principled, observant, a quiet advocate for balance and ethical governance. Unlike Cathar, Alara listened, truly listened, to the data, to the implications. This subtle linkage was crucial. Anya continued to watch the Accord's fumbling efforts, her confidence in her own capabilities growing with each ineffective fix they attempted. The stability of the Accord was fraying, piece by piece, exactly as she had foreseen, each failure a validation of her warnings and a tragic testament to their stubbornness. The galaxy was a grand, beautiful machine, and they were letting it rust from within. Days blurred into weeks, each marked by escalating failures. Anya lived and breathed in her lab, a space that felt less like a workshop and more like the neural center of a living entity, an extension of her own formidable intellect. The air, perpetually warmed by the hum of processors and the glow of holographic projections, was a testament to her unrelenting focus, her single-minded dedication. The outside world, the political theater of the Citadel, felt distant, irrelevant. On one wall, a sprawling, luminous schematic of the Stellar Accord's entire network pulsed and flickered, a grim, abstract representation of its slow, agonizing demise, a vibrant death shroud of data. On another, her own parallel system, the Phoenix Protocol, gleamed in pristine azure, its data streams flowing with seamless, silent efficiency, a beacon of order amidst the growing chaos. She spent hours, sometimes days, meticulously coding, testing, and refining components of her superior network. Her fingers danced across custom-built control surfaces, their textured precision a stark contrast to the sterile, smooth interfaces of the Citadel. Each line of code was a testament to years of frustration, of ignored warnings, of an intellect scorned. They called my warnings sensationalist. They dismissed my genius as mere enthusiasm. They valued tradition over truth, protocol over progress. The bitter memories fueled her, sharpening her resolve. Her internal monologue was a constant stream of cold calculation, interspersed with moments of weary resignation and a flicker of self-doubt. Is this arrogance, or is it necessity? She grappled with the ethical ramifications of her actions, acknowledging the tightrope walk between intervention and usurpation. She believed, truly, that her actions, though radical, were for the greater good. The Accord, in its self-congratulatory hubris, was steering the entire galaxy towards catastrophe, a slow-motion collapse that would claim billions of lives, destroy countless worlds. Someone had to grasp the helm, someone who understood the intricate mechanics of the galactic machine, someone who wasn't blinded by pride or protocol. She recalled Cathar's dismissive gaze, the subtle xenophobia in his tone, the way he had pronounced human civilian tech with a barely veiled sneer. It wasn't just about her. It was about every overlooked innovator, every ignored warning, every truth suppressed by entrenched power structures. They built a system they didn't understand, then they broke it with their meddling, and then they dismissed the only person who understood how to fix it. The complexity of her task, the sheer magnitude of what she was preparing to do, sometimes weighed on her. It was a chilling premonition of the immense ethical burden she was about to shoulder. To take control of an entire galaxy's infrastructure, the power was intoxicating, terrifying, but the alternative, watching the galaxy crumble while holding the solution, was unthinkable. This wasn't about revenge, not entirely. It was about proving her intellectual superiority. Yes, securing the recognition she deserved, but beneath it all, a deep-seated desire for true galactic stability, a stability only her systems could guarantee. The time for subtlety was over. The galaxy needed an architect, and she was the only one capable of building its future from the ruins of its past. The Stellar Accord Central Citadel's main control room, once a bastion of hushed efficiency, had devolved into a cacophony of flashing alerts, blaring alarms, and frantic shouts. The sterile scent of recycled air was now tainted with the coppery tang of fear, a palpable miasma that clung to every sweating technician. Director Cathar's smooth jade scales seemed duller, almost a sickly green, his usual composure fractured by mounting panic. He paced the command dais, a predatory rasp in his voice as he barked orders at trembling technicians who stared, wide-eyed and helpless, at holographic displays that flickered from critical red to dead black. "Report. Why are the Xylo's defense grids offline?" Cathar roared, slamming a fist against a console that immediately sparked and died. "This is unprecedented. What is the root cause? Activate backup relays. Divert power from non-essential sectors. Everything?" His voice was cracking, a thin veneer of authority barely concealing the raw fear beneath. A junior technician, a young Catharian whose iridescent markings typically glowed with youthful vitality, now seemed faded and dull. He stammered, "Director, the system isn't accepting the commands. It's a cascading loop. The primary energy conduits are failing, which collapses the subroutines, which further destabilizes the primary. It's eating itself, sir. Every patch, every override, it just seems to accelerate the feedback loop." Commander Vax, a seasoned fleet commander with the lean, battle-hardened physique of a seasoned warrior, stood apart from the hysteria. His grim expression reflected the severity of the crisis. He was a pragmatist, a man of action, not politics, and he valued competence above all else. For years, he'd been frustrated by the Citadel's bureaucratic inertia, the endless layers of command, the paper-pushing. But he'd always trusted the underlying systems, the bedrock of galactic order that ensured his fleets could defend billions of lives. Now, that bedrock was cracking beneath their feet, shattering into dust. Multiple planetary defense grids were going dark, not just on Xylos, but across entire sectors, leaving vulnerable worlds open to any opportunistic threat. Communications, the very sinews of galactic governance and military coordination, were collapsing into garbled static, cutting off his ships from central command, from each other. He thought of his fleet, scattered across the collapsing sectors, now vulnerable, blind, and cut off. He pictured the millions of citizens on frontier worlds, their lives dependent on stable comms for trade, on reliable defense grids for security, on life support systems that were now flickering precariously. He'd scoffed at Anya Sharma's civilian tech warnings in the past, dismissing them as the ramblings of an overzealous human, a common dismissive attitude among the species-proud Accord leadership. But Cathar's condescending arrogance now seemed like a death sentence. Vax valued efficiency, results, and mission success above all else, and right now, the Accord was delivering none of them. He clenched his jaw, the muscle ticking in his cheek. He needed answers, not Cathar's desperate, impotent rage. He needed solutions, and there was only one person he knew who had ever truly understood how this sprawling, collapsing mess worked, the only one who might possess a key to unraveling it. He watched Cathar pace, his reptilian eyes wide with a fear he desperately tried to mask with anger, lashing out at any technician within earshot. His authority was crumbling as fast as the systems he claimed to control. Pride will be the death of us all, Vax thought. He decisively turned and marched towards a secure comms terminal, bypassing the panicked swarm, the useless chaos of the main floor. He knew Cathar would never ask, not directly. The director's pride was too immense, too fragile. But the council was in chaos, fragmented and ineffective, paralyzed by fear and bureaucracy. Someone had to act. Vax, though he loathed the thought, knew it had to be him. His duty was to the Accord citizens, not its failing leadership. Hours later, Vax sat in a secure comms room, the chaos of the main control center muted by sound-dampening fields, though the distant wail of alarms still occasionally penetrated the silence. The air was heavy with the scent of recycled fear. Across the holographic projector, Anya Sharma's image materialized, sharp and clear. Her lab, with its vibrant data streams and custom consoles, the controlled energy of her domain, provided a stark contrast to the grim sterility of his own surroundings and the burgeoning despair outside. Vax felt a familiar flicker of irritation, a stubborn remnant of his own pride, then ruthlessly suppressed it. This wasn't about pride anymore. It was about survival. "Commander Vax," Anya said, her voice crisp, betraying no surprise at his call, as if she had been expecting it, a pre-programmed event in her meticulous calculations. Her eyes, intelligent and knowing, seemed to pierce through the holographic projection, assessing him. "To what do I owe this unscheduled communication? I trust your fleet isn't experiencing subsector energy fluctuations beyond its operational parameters." The dry wit was subtle, but present, a reminder of her past warnings. Vax's spine stiffened. He detested asking for help, especially from someone he had previously dismissed, an outsider to the military hierarchy. His entire career had been built on self-reliance and command authority. To be forced to appeal to a civilian tech was a bitter pill. "Architect Sharma," he began, trying to maintain an air of professional courtesy, a thin thread of dignity, "the Accord is experiencing significant operational challenges, systemic anomalies across multiple sectors, impacting critical infrastructure. I'm requesting your unique insights into the nature of these system-wide anomalies, specifically on a potential corrective solution." He chose his words carefully, avoiding any admission of total failure or, worse, Cathar's blatant incompetence. It was a dance of diplomacy, even in the face of impending doom. Anya merely arched a brow, a subtle, dry-witted gesture that conveyed far more than words. "Operational challenges, Commander. From my vantage, the entire network is in a state of terminal self-cannibalization. Your fleet systems, for example, are currently running on suboptimal power frequencies, causing a 40% degradation in shields, rendering half your targeting arrays unreliable, and your warp drives prone to spontaneous field inversions. Your deep space comms are on a loop of decaying packets, effectively cutting off squadrons from each other. You're lucky you even got through to me with a secure channel. Most Accord comms are now little more than static." She recited the specific failures with a clinical precision that bordered on terrifying. She knew everything. Vax swallowed, his face a mask of stone, though his internal composure was rapidly fracturing. Anya knew she knew everything. Every vulnerability, every failing system, every detail of their collapse. He felt a sudden, profound humiliation, but it was quickly overshadowed by cold dread, a primal fear he rarely permitted himself. The lives of his crew, his fleet, the stability of the entire quadrant, they were all balanced on the precipice. "Can it be fixed?" he asked, the words forced, a bitter taste in his mouth. "Fixed?" Anya leaned back in her chair, a slight, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips, a flicker of triumph that was quickly contained. "The Accord's current state is the result of years of ignoring foundational principles, Commander. It's not a simple fix. It's a complete structural rebuild that your current engineers are incapable of executing. They're still trying to mend a ruptured artery with a bandage, unaware that the entire circulatory system is failing. They don't understand the underlying architecture, only the surface-level patches they've applied. The damage is too extensive, too deeply embedded in the very fabric of their network." She paused, letting the implication hang in the tense silence. The Phoenix Protocol, however, was designed for exactly this scenario. It is a complete, parallel architecture awaiting activation. Vax's eyes narrowed, his military mind quickly processing the data, the implications. "The contingency system you proposed years ago. Cathar dismissed it as a theoretical exercise, a wasteful project, if I recall." He felt a surge of anger, not at Anya, but at Cathar's short-sightedness, his arrogant dismissal of genuine expertise. "Indeed. Theoretical until now," Anya said, her gaze unwavering, her voice steady and resolute. "It's been running in parallel, observing, learning, adapting, waiting. A silent, fully operational sentinel. It can stabilize it. It can bring it all back online. Better than before. More efficient, more secure, more resilient." She projected a small, intricate holographic schematic between them, a glowing representation of the Accord's failing network, a chaotic storm of red, overlaid with her own robust, perfectly synchronized system, a serene expanse of azure. The contrast was stark, undeniable. "What are your terms?" Vax asked, cutting straight to the chase. He knew there would be terms. Power was never given freely, especially not by someone who had been so systematically undervalued. He also understood that a system, no matter how elegant, needed a human hand to guide it. Anya's smile vanished, replaced by an expression of unwavering resolve, of absolute clarity. Her eyes met his, unblinking. "My terms will be delivered directly to the Accord Council, Commander. When they are ready to listen, truly listen, not just hear. The time for half measures and polite dismissals is over." She nodded, a subtle gesture of dismissal, a quiet assertion of her newfound leverage. "Don't contact me again until they are. The longer they hesitate, the higher the cost to your galaxy." The holographic projection of Anya winked out, leaving Vax alone in the secure comms room, the cold dread replaced by a dawning understanding of the true scale of their vulnerability, and Anya's absolute, terrifying control. His pride was a small price to pay for survival. The weight of the galaxy's fate was shifting, and Cathar, in his blindness, had handed Anya the fulcrum. The hollow conference room in the Central Citadel pulsed with a frantic, agitated energy, far from the polished calm it usually exuded. The Stellar Accord Council, a collection of dignitaries from across the galaxy, projected their images into the chamber, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and barely suppressed rage. The dignified composure that usually characterized their species-specific expressions had dissolved into a panicked, multi-species babble. Cathar, his scales now a dull, unhealthy green that almost seemed to cling to his skin, paced at the head of the table, his usual arrogance replaced by a barely contained apoplectic fury. His imposing form cast erratic shadows as he moved, a caged beast. Commander Vax stood rigidly to one side, his face a grim mask, arms crossed over his chest, a silent sentinel of their crumbling reality. Dr. Alara Vess, though not a council member, had been urgently summoned, her presence a silent testament to the unprecedented environmental and ethical implications of the collapsing systems. Her normally calm demeanor was strained, her brow furrowed with deep concern for the ecosystems rapidly failing across the Accord. Suddenly, Cathar's enraged protests were cut short, mid-sentence, as a new holographic projection flickered to life in the center of the room. It overrode all other feeds, silencing the agitated murmurs. It was Anya Sharma, seated calmly in her vibrant lab, the background a dizzying cascade of perfect, flowing data, an endless river of azure information. She looked utterly composed, a stark contrast to the council's disarray, a serene eye in the storm of their panic. "Good morning, esteemed council members." Anya's voice cut through the nervous silence, clear and resonant, carrying the weight of unassailable fact. Or perhaps, what's left of your morning, given the sector-wide blackout, the cascading environmental collapses, and the significant degradation of your military's operational capabilities. Her tone was not accusatory, but clinically factual, letting the blunt reality sink in. Cathar spluttered, stepping forward, his claws flexing. "Architect Sharma, how dare you interrupt a council meeting? You have no authority here. This is an act of insubordination, bordering on treason." His voice was a raw, guttural growl, stripped of its former purring condescension. Anya simply held up a hand, a gesture of quiet command that surprisingly, effectively, stilled Cathar's rage for a moment. On the holographic display, a stark, real-time image materialized, a visual representation of the Accord's failing infrastructure, flickering erratically, a chaotic mosaic of red and orange, dying nodes winking out like stars. Beside it, in brilliant, steady blue, her own parallel network, the Phoenix Protocol, pulsed with flawless, vibrant life, a silent testament to perfection. "Director, I have all the authority necessary for what I am about to do. As you can plainly see, your systems are on the verge of total, irreversible collapse. Planetary defense grids are down, critical life support systems are failing on countless colonies, and your vaunted fleet is effectively blind and crippled, unable to coordinate, unable to defend." A collective gasp swept through the council, a visceral wave of shock. The visual evidence was undeniable, far more impactful than any report. Anya continued, her voice unwavering, building to an inescapable conclusion. "For years, I warned you. I told you your hubris, your endless layering of untested code, your dismissal of my foundational designs, would lead to this. You chose to ignore me, to prioritize outdated protocols and political expediency over scientific truth. Now the time for warnings is over. The time for consequences is here." She paused, her eyes sweeping over each council member, lingering on Cathar's seething, defeated face. "I have been running a superior, parallel Phoenix protocol system exactly as I designed it. It has been learning, adapting, optimizing, and waiting. It can fix this. It can reboot your collapsing infrastructure and restore order, stability, and security to the galaxy." Cathar's face was contorted with fury, a vein throbbing in his temple. "This is blackmail. You presume too much, human. The Accord will not bow to such extortion. We will find another way. We have contingencies." "It is not blackmail, Director. It is leverage," Anya corrected him coolly, her voice cutting through his bluster like a surgical laser. "And your contingencies are what brought you to this point. My terms are non-negotiable. For the full initiation of the Phoenix Protocol, for the restoration of galactic stability, I demand complete and uncompromised control over the Accord's critical infrastructure. This includes all defense networks, logistical supply chains, communications, and planetary support systems. Every byte of data, every energy conduit, every command protocol will flow through me, through my system. My system, my rules. I will operate as the sole authority over this network, accountable only to the stability of the galaxy itself. The Accord, as you know it, will cease to be an entity of political squabbling and become an efficient, responsive mechanism of governance and protection. The Council exploded into a furious babble of protests and outrage. A reptilian Catharian dignitary, his facial scales flaring crimson with indignation, slammed his fist down on his console, sending sparks flying. This is an affront to the Accord, to its centuries of established order, to galactic sovereignty itself. Another, a towering, multi-limbed Arcturian, gestured wildly with 3 of its 4 arms. Unilateral control by a single entity is anathema to our very principles. Anya's voice, though not raised, cut through the din, silencing them with sheer force of will and undeniable truth. Centuries of established order that brought you to the brink of extinction, anathema to principles that lead to billions of lives being extinguished. I offer you stability. I offer you a future. But it comes at a price. Your arrogance led you here. My knowledge will lead you out. Her gaze found Alara Vess, who watched with a mix of awe and deep concern, a silent recognition of the profound ethical tightrope Anya was walking. Then her eyes shifted to Vax, whose grim expression had settled into a reluctant, agonizing understanding. The power dynamic had fundamentally shifted. Anya wasn't asking, she wasn't negotiating. She was stating a fact, an unyielding condition for the continued existence of their civilization. The true scale of her control, her absolute leverage, was now laid bare, unchallengeable. The air in the hollow conference room was thick with desperation, the weight of a dying galaxy pressing down on the assembled council. On the main display, Veridium-7, a once vibrant agricultural world known for its shimmering bioluminescent flora, now showed flickering atmospheric processors, its verdant plains scarred by expanding blight zones. Panicked citizens, tiny figures visible from orbit, were evacuating what little cover remained. The visuals of collapsing power grids, silent, drifting defense satellites, and garbled distress calls were chilling, undeniable proof of the Accord's imminent demise. The flickering screens, each one representing a dying world or a crippled fleet, screamed their failure. Director Cathar, stripped of his usual composure, his jade scales now blotchy with sweat, attempted one last desperate negotiation, his voice hoarse, ragged with a fear he could no longer conceal. Architect Sharma, this is preposterous. We cannot simply surrender millennia of institutional authority to a single individual, to a human. There must be an alternative. A compromise? His words were a desperate plea, not a command. Anya met his gaze, her own unwavering, devoid of triumph, filled only with the cold, hard clarity of necessity. Director, the alternative is galactic collapse. Look around you. There is no compromise with entropy, no bargaining with the void. You ignored the warnings, you rejected the solutions, and now the choice is stark. You either accept my terms, or you watch your empire crumble, taking billions of innocent lives with it. She demonstrated her absolute control with a targeted, crucial intervention, or rather, the lack thereof. A major comms nexus in the high-traffic Sector Beta-9, a vital artery for interplanetary trade and emergency services, had been teetering on the edge of failure for the last hour, its signal weakening. With a single thought, Anya could have shored up the connection, offered temporary relief, a fleeting glimpse of hope. Instead, she did nothing. The nexus died, plunging an entire quadrant into communications blackout, its holographic representation on the main display winking out with a soft thump that seemed to echo through the stunned room. The council gasped, a fresh wave of panic washing over them, now fully grasping the terrifying reality of her power. She wasn't threatening, she was demonstrating. You see? Anya's voice remained calm, cutting through the council's horrified murmurs like a scalpel. I can let it fall, or I can restore it. The choice and its consequences are yours. Commander Vax, who had been observing with a mounting sense of grim acceptance, his military training overriding his personal pride, stepped forward. His voice, usually gruff and commanding, was strained, heavy with the weight of responsibility for his fleet and the citizens they protected. Director, council members, we are past the point of political maneuvering. My fleets are blind. Our supply lines are severed. Colonies are dying, not just suffering, but dying. If we do not accept Architect Sharma's terms, there will be no accord left to govern, no authority to wield. Her system works. Ours has failed. We have no other option. Our duty, above all else, is to the lives we are sworn to protect. His words, direct and pragmatic, resonated with the chilling clarity of a battle commander facing inevitable, complete defeat, a truth that could no longer be denied. Dr. Alara Vess, her face a picture of empathetic concern, her moral compass guiding her, added her quiet voice, her gaze sweeping over the council. The ecological impact alone, if this continues, would be irreversible. We are talking about mass extinctions, planetary death on an unprecedented scale. Architect Sharma's intervention, while unprecedented in its scope, is now the only ethical path to survival. We cannot allow pride to extinguish billions of lives and leave us with nothing but a galaxy of barren husks. This isn't about power dynamics anymore, it's about existential survival. Her principled stance lent further moral weight to Anya's demands, appealing to the Council's remaining sense of duty, if not their sense of reason. Cathar spun, his eyes wild, darting from the dying projections to Vax's determined pragmatism, to Alara's unwavering moral compass, and finally, to Anya's unyielding resolve. The weight of his centuries-old institution, his personal legacy, the lives of billions all rested on his decision. His humiliation was profound, visible in the trembling of his scales, the slumped posture of his shoulders. He had fought, he had threatened, he had pleaded, but Anya had proven, beyond any shadow of a doubt, her absolute, terrifying control. She had stripped him bare of his authority, exposing his incompetence to the entire galaxy. "Very well," Cathar choked out, the words tasting like ash in his mouth, each syllable a surrender. He slammed his fist on the table, not in anger, but in a gesture of profound, crushing defeat, the sound echoing hollowly in the sudden silence. The Stellar Accord capitulates. "Architect Sharma, you have your terms. Now save us all." Anya simply nodded, a silent acknowledgement of her victory, tinged with the first, subtle hint of the immense burden that now settled upon her shoulders, a chilling premonition of the isolation her absolute power would bring. The council members, with systems failing around them and their worlds dying, collectively offered their reluctant, bitter agreement, their faces grim with the knowledge of their diminished roles. Anya had seized power, not through conquest, but through indispensable knowledge and their catastrophic failure. And in doing so, she had set the stage for a new galactic order, one built on her meticulously designed systems, governed by her singular will. In the quiet sanctity of her lab, Anya Sharma prepared for the galactic reboot. The weight of the moment was palpable, a dense pressure in the air that seemed to hum alongside the active circuitry, vibrating with latent power. She stood before her primary console, her fingers poised over the custom-built tactile interface, each key a conduit to countless systems across the galaxy. The holographic displays surrounding her glowed with a renewed intensity, reflecting her focused concentration, a myriad of data streams waiting for her command. On the largest screen, the Accord's network was a chaotic, dying storm of red and orange, flickering erratically, each dying note a scream of failed potential, a cascade of silent suffering. Anya took a deep breath, the scent of ozone and warm synth coffee a familiar comfort, grounding her in the face of such monumental responsibility. This is it. Years of planning, of coding, of being dismissed, of enduring their arrogant dismissal, all culminating in this single, monumental act. She had achieved her leverage, forced their hand. Now came the true work, the work of the architect, the rebuilding of a broken galaxy. Phoenix Protocol. Initiate full system transfer and network reconstruction sequence, Anya commanded, her voice steady, precise, each word resonating with absolute authority. Her fingers moved, a blur of practiced grace across the console, inputting a complex series of encrypted commands, a digital symphony of restoration. With a silent, almost imperceptible surge of energy, the old, chaotic data streams on the display began to die out. The angry reds and oranges faded, not with a flicker, but with a smooth, elegant dissolve replaced by a seamless cascade of brilliant azure. It was like watching a tempestuous storm dissipate, replaced by the serene clarity of a tranquil sky. The transition was flawless, utterly silent, a testament to Anya's unparalleled genius and the meticulous perfection of her protocol. Across the galaxy, the Accord's network, once teetering on the brink, was being reborn, reshaped, and revitalized under her direct, centralized control. Anya watched, her expression unreadable, as the blue light spread across the holographic star map, lighting up systems, restoring comms, bringing defense grids back online with a reassuring, steady glow. She could feel the vastness of the network, a living, breathing entity now fully responsive to her will, her very thoughts translating into galactic-scale operations. It was an unparalleled sensation of power and profound connection. On a separate, secure comms channel, Ilara Vess's voice, filled with a mixture of awe and concern, filtered through, sounding closer than the vast distances separating them. Anya, my ecological sensors, they're stabilizing. Atmospheric processors on Veridian-7 are back to optimal output. The environmental collapse has been averted. The immediate crisis is resolved. Ilara's face, projected in a smaller window, was alight with relief, a profound gratitude for the countless lives saved, but her eyes held a thoughtful apprehension, a silent question about the future. She understood the immense power Anya now wielded and the delicate balance it represented, the ethical tightrope walk. From a fleet command center in Sector Gamma, Commander Vax's gruff voice followed, stripped of his usual cynicism, replaced by a tone of awe and grudging admiration. Architect Sharma, my tactical displays are green across the board. Targeting arrays are calibrated, warp drives responsive. Comms are clear as a bell across every squadron. Remarkable. Truly remarkable. There was a new respect in his tone, a bond forged in the fires of crisis and salvation. His relief, for his fleet and the billions of citizens he protected, was palpable, a heavy weight lifted from his shoulders. Anya allowed herself a small, internal sigh of satisfaction, a fleeting moment of quiet triumph. The immense complexity of the task, the potential for residual resistance from the old systems, the countless variables, all had been overcome. The galactic reboot was complete. But with the satisfaction came a new feeling, a profound weight that settled upon her shoulders. The Accord systems were fully restored, but fundamentally altered. A new era had begun, and she, Anya Sharma, was its solitary architect, its vigilant, indispensable guardian. The quiet hum of her lab no longer just signaled activity. It echoed with the silent, overwhelming burden of galactic responsibility. Months later, the Stellar Accord Central Citadel still gleamed with polished chromesteel, a monument to power, but its atmosphere had undergone a profound transformation. The pervasive hum of energy conduits remained, yet it felt different now, more precise, less a backdrop to bureaucratic noise and more a testament to a perfectly synchronized machine, a single, vast organism operating with seamless efficiency. The sterile scent of recycled air was still present, but now mingled with a faint, clean aroma of newly rebooted systems, a subtle suggestion of revitalization. Anya Sharma, now formally known as the Grand Architect or Systems Director, presided over a council meeting. She sat at the head of the polished obsidian table, a position once reserved for Cathar, her posture relaxed yet authoritative, an embodiment of quiet, absolute control. Her dark, tailored uniform, subtly incorporating elements of her lab's functional aesthetic, spoke of competence rather than ostentation, utility rather than pomp. Her dry wit, once merely an irritant, now carried the undeniable weight of absolute power, a sharp edge that cut through any lingering resistance. Director Cathar was present, seated towards the end of the table, his former seat, a place of marginalized importance. His scales were still dull, his face etched with a permanent scowl of bitter resentment, a shadow of his former self. He spoke only when directly addressed, his replies curt and clipped, lacking any of his former grandstanding. His authority had been effectively stripped, leaving him a marginalized figurehead, a grim, living reminder of the Accord's past follies and his own devastating misjudgment. His humiliation was a constant, palpable presence in the room, a stark lesson for any who harbored similar hubris. Anya initiated the meeting, her voice calm and clear, the antithesis of Cathar's former bluster. Council members, as per my directives last cycle, resource allocation to the frontier colonies has been optimized. Automated supply convoys are operating at a 99.8% efficiency rate, a 30% improvement over previous benchmarks. Planetary atmospheric processors across Sector Gamma have seen a 12% increase in filtration output, directly attributable to the Phoenix Protocol's energy distribution schema, leading to a significant reduction in environmental degradation on over 24 worlds. She paused, allowing the data, projected in clean, elegant holograms that flowed dynamically around the table, to speak for itself. Her directives were clear, concise, and backed by irrefutable, undeniable results. The whispers of dissent had long since been silenced by competence. Commander Vax, seated near Anya, offered pragmatic support, his voice firm and assured. The fleet's operational readiness is at an all-time high, Grand Architect. Reconnaissance drones are feeding real-time data directly into the tactical network, allowing for preemptive threat neutralization, not just reactive defense. We've seen a significant drop in cross-sector piracy incidents, nearly 70% in the last quarter, and early warnings have prevented several large-scale planetary conflicts. Our forces are more responsive, more effective than ever before. He nodded, a subtle gesture of respect, a veteran warrior acknowledging a superior strategist. He had learned to prioritize competence over hierarchy, and Anya's system delivered beyond anything he had previously imagined. Dr. Alara Vess, always the voice of ethical consideration and ecological balance, contributed her insights, her concern now layered with cautious optimism. Grand Architect, with the increased efficiency and the Phoenix Protocol's adaptive resource management, we've also been able to reallocate energy resources to vulnerable planetary ecosystems. Initial projections indicate a full recovery for Veridian-7 within 2 cycles, a timeline previously considered impossible. We're seeing similar restorative impacts across several other heavily affected worlds. However, Alara continued, her gaze meeting Anya's, a silent, moral challenge. The centralized nature of these controls, the absolute authority of the system, necessitates continuous ethical oversight. We must ensure this immense power is perpetually used for the common good, that the stability it provides doesn't inadvertently stifle liberty or individual growth, or become an unchallengeable tyranny of efficiency. Her principled stance, though supportive, remained a vital reminder of the immense responsibility that now rested on Anya's shoulders. Anya acknowledged Alara with a slight tilt of her head, a rare, almost imperceptible softening of her features. Precisely, Doctor. The power of the Phoenix Protocol lies in its adaptability and its ability to integrate real-time data across all sectors, constantly learning, constantly optimizing for the greater good. It is not merely a system, it is a living entity, responsive and vigilant. And yes, with that power comes a profound, existential responsibility. She looked at the council members, many of whom still eyed her with a mix of grudging admiration, simmering resentment, and cautious awe. The new operational philosophy had taken hold, marked by precision and clinical efficiency, a stark contrast to the old, bloated bureaucracy. The transition hadn't been easy. There had been resistance, subtle sabotage attempts, but Anya had asserted her new role, consolidating her power and showcasing her strategic vision with every successful directive, every undeniable result. The Accord was stable, thriving, efficient beyond measure. But it was no longer theirs. It was hers, a galaxy reborn under her quiet, unyielding hand. The vastness of space stretched before Anya Sharma, an infinite tapestry of stars, swirling nebulae, and the distant, reassuring glow of the newly stabilized galaxy. She stood in her hidden lab, the vibrant, chaotic brilliance of her custom consoles now muted to a soft glow, reflecting the quiet solemnity that had settled upon her. The air, typically charged with the hum of processors, now held a contemplative stillness. She had achieved everything she had set out to do. Validation, influence, absolute control. The galaxy was safer, more efficient, operating with a precision she had only ever dreamed of, a beautiful, perfectly tuned machine. Yet, a profound sense of isolation echoed in the quiet hum of her lab, a chill wind on the lonely pinnacle of power. The weight of absolute control was a heavy, silent companion, a crown of solitude. Alara Vess joined her, stepping quietly into the observation alcove, her presence a welcome, grounding anchor. She didn't speak immediately, simply standing beside Anya, her gaze following hers out into the cosmic expanse. The faint scent of ozone and warm synthetics still lingered, but today it felt like the scent of victory and something else, a lingering, profound loneliness. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Alara finally murmured, her voice soft, contemplative, breaking the silence with gentle reverence. All of it, functioning, breathing, a living tapestry of order. She paused, then turned slightly to face Anya, her eyes holding both admiration and a deep, empathetic understanding. "You saved us all, Anya, you truly did. The scale of what you accomplished is staggering." Anya simply nodded, her eyes still fixed on the stars, their silent brilliance reflecting in her own. "I ensured its survival. I corrected their errors. But the cost," she trailed off, the unspoken implications hanging in the air like nebulae. The cost of usurping power, of forcing humility upon the arrogant, of holding the fate of billions in her hands. The burden of vigilance was immense, unending. She had always sought control over her creations, over the broader galactic future, believing her systems were the only robust solution, the only path to true stability. Now she had that control, absolute and unyielding. The irony was not lost on her. The outsider, the dismissed human, the civilian tech, now held the keys to the empire, the architect of a new dawn forged from the ashes of their pride. The nature of power, Alara said, understanding the unspoken sentiment, her voice a balm against Anya's solitude. It's a double-edged sword. You wield it with more wisdom and foresight than Cathar ever did, with a genuine commitment to the common good. But the burden remains, heavier than any crown. A truly perfect system might be stable, efficient, but is it still truly free? What happens to the unpredictable, the chaotic, the things that make life vibrant and sometimes messy, when order becomes absolute? Anya finally turned from the view, meeting Alara's gaze, a flicker of vulnerability in her usually resolute eyes. Freedom without stability is chaos. Stability without oversight is tyranny. It is a balance I must constantly, ruthlessly maintain. She looked around her lab, at the meticulously crafted consoles, the endless streams of data that flowed at her command, each bite a thread in the vast tapestry of galactic order she now wove. I sought to prove them wrong, to show them that true power lay not in brute force or established authority, but in indispensable knowledge, in understanding the fundamental mechanics of existence. I succeeded. But now, the loneliness of that pinnacle is profound. The galaxy is safe, but it is my safety, enforced by my will. Her journey had transformed her from an overlooked, frustrated genius into the indispensable architect. Grappling with the immense ethical responsibility of wielding absolute control, her personal vindication eclipsed by the collective weight of billions. "You're not alone, Anya," Alara said softly, her hand resting gently on Anya's arm, a simple human gesture of connection that pierced through the isolation. "You have allies. And you have a moral compass, a fierce integrity, which is more than many in power can claim. The Accord is reshaped, yes, but it is also resilient, adaptable, capable of growth under the right guidance. And that, in itself, is a form of innovation." Anya offered a rare, small smile, a flicker of warmth in her usually calculating eyes, a hint of the human beneath the grand architect. The galaxy was safe. She had ensured it. But the vigilance, the choices, the constant, silent weight of decision-making, the ethical tightrope walk between control and freedom, that was her new reality. The true cost of control was the solitude it demanded, and the constant, unwavering commitment to the fragile balance between power and responsibility. The grand architect had built a new future, and now she had to live in it, eternally vigilant, forever alone at the helm of a universe she had painstakingly, magnificently saved.